Hello and welcome to LionWing Talks, a show where we discuss all things LionWing, tabletop games, Japanese games, and localization. I'm Bradley Hailstorm, founder and president of LionWing. This is episode 30 for October 13th, 2021. I've been gone 6 weeks, but damn, it feels like I've been gone for 6 years. I'll tell you what, the broken time continuum that is planet Earth in the year 2021 has been in full effect over the past month and a half, because while I've only been gone a month and a half, it somehow feels much longer and much shorter, thus the time continuum being broken. But wow, am I glad to be back. So it has felt like an eternity. I didn't realize how much I missed talking with you all every Wednesday until I was no longer doing it. So I always enjoyed it. It's what I looked forward to, especially on Wednesdays. But I didn't realize how much I looked forward to it. And now, having not done this for almost 2 months, I realized just how much fun I had every Wednesday at 9 p.m. here on Twitch, chatting with all of you. So I guess it really goes to show that you don't know what you got till it's gone. And yes, that is an 80s hair metal reference to the great band Cinderella from their hit song, aptly titled, Don't Know What You Got Till It's Gone. Bet you weren't expecting that in a LionWing Talks. Yes, we've got some ground to cover tonight. For starters, what the hell have I been doing the past 6 weeks, right? That's probably what people are wanting to know. It's probably as good a place as any to start, too. So, if you've been following along since the summertime, since July, you know that my wife and I were selling our house, and then we were buying a house. I don't know if anyone's done that recently. I don't know if anyone did it over the summer. But boy, was it a bad time to do all of that. Well, it was a great time to sell a house. It was a terrible time to buy a house. And yeah, so we sold our house the end of July. We bought a house in the beginning of August-ish. I guess we sold our house in the middle of July and bought our new house, this house, in August. But, you know, this market's crazy. And to stand out, you really have to throw in a lot of bells and whistles for your offer to beat out all the other offers, especially when, like, you're getting beat out by all cash offers. And one of the things that we were willing to do that no one else was willing to do, apparently, was to give the sellers 2 months to move out. So we sold our house. We got out of our house. We put all our stuff in pods. And then the 5 of us, me, my wife, my 2 kids, my dog, moved in with my parents. All 5 of us, for a long time. Living off just the bare essentials, which, you know, wouldn't be so bad if I was like 20 and I was doing this. Okay, whatever, even 25 or hell, even 30. But doing it at this point in my life with 2 kids, boy, that was not a fun experience. My parents are great, but shit, I never want to do that again. So we moved there, and then we moved into our new place, the place that we're at currently, 3 weeks ago. And I've just been kind of unpacking and getting acclimated ever since. So there's been some also logistic issues, as well as some unforeseen things that came up with this house that we were not expecting to be things with this house, that have taken both my time, energy, and money, worst of all. So that is why I have not been around and doing the show for the past 6 weeks. It's also why I haven't really been involved in, like, the social media. It's why I haven't really been super present in Discord. It's why updates have been a little bit slower on all of across our Kickstarter campaigns. So yeah, that's what I've been doing, and that's where I've been, and I'm glad I'm not there anymore, and I'm glad I'm here. And I'm glad that I'm spending this Wednesday night with you. Hey, if this is your first time joining us, because there's probably going to be some folks who this is your first time joining us, because a lot of folks came aboard with Picaresque Roman and they never really got a true LionWing Talks episode once they jumped on the bandwagon. We did, episode 29 was a modified LionWing Talks, where Win and I just walked through what the localization process was like for Picaresque Roman, but this is a proper LionWing Talks episode. This is what you can typically expect from these weekly shows, where it's just kind of a conversation with all of you to talk about project updates, tabletop games, Japanese games, and localization, as I say in the intro. So, if this is your first time joining us, hey, thanks so much for checking us out, and thanks for spending your evening with us, or whatever time of day it is where you are. If you are not joining us live, which I always encourage folks to join us live, because if you join us live, you can participate in the conversation in the Twitch chat. You can also ask me questions in real time and catch me off guard and not give me any time to prepare for them, and which I've said many times are some of my favorite ways to answer questions, because then I can't bullshit anyone, because I'm not a fast enough bullshitter and I'm not a good enough liar to lie reactionary like that. So you can ask me questions in real time if you join us live, which is cool. But of course, 9 p.m. ET on Twitch is not everyone's ideal way of spending their Wednesday night. Perhaps you've got other obligations, other Twitch channels to watch, more important and better and more fun things to do. In which case, if that is the case, then you can always catch us on playback over on YouTube. I upload the videos usually overnight on Wednesdays, and they're up sometime on Thursday. If the shows go really long, it might take a little bit longer to get that show up on YouTube, just because the upload time takes quite a while. I've been known to go like 2 hours, 2 hours, 15 minutes, 2 hours, 30 minutes, and I shoot in 4K. And so uploading that length of a video to YouTube sometimes takes a while. I'm not going to be talking for 2.5 hours tonight. I'm easing myself back into LionWing talks. Let's put it that way. So this will be a shorter show. I don't know if I can ever have a short show. I'm sorry. It's just like not in me. I can't, I just can't not talk, right? So if you've been following along for the past 30 episodes, or even the past like 3 episodes, you probably have a good understanding that I just can't not talk sometimes. So this won't be like super short, but maybe in comparison to all the other episodes, a little shorter. Though, you know, how many times have I said that? I'd love for someone to run the tape back and see how many times I've actually said that in the intro of one of these shows and then not made good on that promise, and instead have gone not an hour and 15 minutes, but 2 hours. So I could be saying that this is going to be a short show only to then talk for 2 hours. You never know. That's part of the fun or part of the dread. I'm not sure. Let me check the Twitch chat. Let's see here. I feel like I missed the last 4, so it's even longer for me. Yeah, Mox, haven't seen you around in quite a while. So always good to see you back. Good to see you in the chat. Af, the mic wanted to say hello. Yes, the mic did want to say hello. I've got a new setup, so let's push this down a little bit. I don't like that showing in the camera. There we go. I don't like that elbow joint of the boom arm showing. So yeah, a new setup, new digs, which means I've had to sort of reacclimate my entire office space. You'll see that my wall over here is barren, which I don't like, but I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do there. The Record of Lodos War B2 size poster probably will not be returning, though it's right over there. It's going to be going on that wall there where I'm looking. And instead, I'm going to do something different on this wall. I think I might go for either a new single print. I'm eyeing a Udashihara print from Growlancer 3 that I think I might put there because Udashihara does produce some of my favorite art. I probably wouldn't say some of my favorite art. I'd probably just say my favorite art. Or I might go a different route, and I might go like a multiple, like three separate prints there. I'm not sure. So I didn't want to commit to anything. I would have loved to have had it together for tonight's show as the return, but I wasn't willing to just jump into something and not be happy with it. So I'm going to need a little bit more time to get this place in order, but for the most part, it's ready to go. It's functional, let's say. I was like working off a makeshift desk for like a good chunk of August, all of September, and then a little bit of October as well. So it feels good to have my workstation back. Let's see here. Looking at the chat, Af says, one of our regulars, hope also you don't mind that I finally send you this gun and gun overheat theory crap video since you seem to be back on track. Yeah, send it to me. I saw in the chat that you were doing that, but that was one of those times when we were at my parents, and I wasn't checking chat nearly as much, but I did see it pop up on my phone. So send it my way, and I will upload it to YouTube. We've got project updates to talk about tonight. Not as many updates as you might guess or I might wish. given the fact that I've been absent for the past month and a half. But hey, that's the board game industry. That's the print-based medium industry. That's the industry of anything that's coming from overseas on a container ship in 2021, especially in October of 2021, going into what's going to be a clusterfuck of a holiday 2021 season. So, wish I had more updates, but I will give you the updates that I have. If this is your first time joining us, we do follow a format here. It recently changed, but the new format is I go through all of our project updates one by one, each of our games that has an update to talk about, and then I will go into answering our listeners' submitted questions. And if you want to submit a question, you can drop the question to me via Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, on our Kickstarter, through a private message some way, or in the way that most people do, and that's Discord. We've got a channel specifically dedicated for LionWing Talks questions, and the channel on the side that says LionWing Talks. So feel free to drop me those questions there. If you are watching right now and you're like, hey, I didn't submit a question, but one just came up, drop it in the chat, as I said before. So I think that's probably it for introductions. I'm ready to talk about some games. Let's talk about Picaresque Roman, a Requiem for Rogues first. So what's going on there? Well, the good news is that project is quite well on track right now. I posted an update. See, this is when the time continuum really fucks with my head, because I don't know if that was last week or the week before. It could have been 2 years ago. And if you gave me a convincing enough story that I posted the last update 2 years ago, I might actually believe you at this point. But I posted an update recently on Picaresque Roman, just kind of giving a status check of where we're at with things, and things are going well. So the main thing that we had at that point, and now we're just wrapping up, was finishing up that that's true. The second scenario that wasn't finished when the campaign went live. So we unlocked 5 scenarios through the Picaresque Roman campaign, 3 of which were done before we went to Kickstarter, and then we were writing the other 2 during and then after the Kickstarter, even though it wasn't our plan to write both of them after, but it kind of happened that way based on group SGR and what happened there. And so our biggest thing was getting that translated, playtesting it, making sure everything worked, and then inserting that into the scenario booklet. So everything's translated now. Everything is mostly edited. And so that was kind of like the last big thing we were working on. Now it's just about finishing up packaging those files so that we can deliver them digitally. So I know that I mentioned in updates, and then it's stated on the campaign page that we would be delivering the PDFs through DriveThruRPG, and that's still our intent. But I have been toying with the idea of just delivering it directly through Pledge Manager, just because Pledge Manager makes it so easy to deliver digital rewards. It's amazing. I love Pledge Manager. I can't say enough great things about them. And when it comes to delivering digital rewards, they're on it. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to decide there. I've got a little bit of time to decide. Not a lot, but a little bit. Still, it looks like we are going to be pretty close to hitting that original target date for delivering the PDF book, which is cool, and most of the other PDF content as well. We might dole the PDF content out like a little bit at a time, because I do think that we're going to be able to get out the core rulebook within our window. So we said we wanted to deliver the PDFs in October. We'll be able to do that with the core rulebook. We'll very likely be able to do that with the scenario booklet. Just, that 5th scenario with what happened with Group SGR and them coming down with illness kind of got in the way of that. But I think we'll still be able to do that as well, which really leaves us with just the digital task cards, which is easy because it's already made. So I'm thinking that we'll be able to deliver all of the PDFs in October, but it might come to a situation where we deliver the rule book, we deliver the cards in October, and then the scenario booklet comes shortly thereafter in November. First, second, third week in November. I don't want to push it out too much farther than that, but I also want to make sure that we're giving you guys a product that is good. I don't want to deliver a shitty product just to meet the window when I could wait an additional 2 weeks to make sure the product is solid and then give it to you all. And it's like, well, 2 weeks is 2 weeks. I mean, sure, you never want to not hit your window, but I also want to make sure what we're giving you is up to par. So we're looking good with Picaresque Roman. We're looking really good. I think you will find that Picaresque Roman will, over time, there'll probably be some scenarios that are available going forward. We were very pleased with how that campaign turned out. I mentioned, I think I mentioned this in the localization video that we did for episode 29, but I definitely mentioned it in the interview that I did in September, where I said I wasn't quite sure who was going to show up for this for this Kickstarter. I mean, there are not a lot of Japanese TRPGs out there. And there certainly are not a lot of indie Japanese TRPGs that are out there. There's a couple. But even if you combine the localized indie and the localized commercial Japanese TRPGs, you're counting on two hands. That's it. So like there's not a lot of market research to tell you like, hey, this is a great idea. You should definitely pour resources and money and time into this as opposed to something else that's a bit more of a sure bet. But like I was so passionate and I believed so much in Picaresque Roman that I was like, you know what? Like I don't know if there's an audience for this. I don't know if 50 people are going to show up for this. I really believe in this game though. Like I love this game. I want other people to experience it and to love it too. As I've said from the very beginning, I really only localize and publish games that I like. And so I liked the game and I was willing to sort of like, you know, roll the dice, if you will, and hope that people saw in it what we saw in it. And we did. And in fact, I wasn't quite expecting the campaign to do as well as it did. Going into the first day, I mean, I really didn't have much of an expectation. I was just hoping that we hit our goal, which was 10,000. I was like, you know what? If we hit our goal, I'm cool. And then the first day was like, very successful, which, kind of caught me by surprise a little bit. And I said, okay. And then I kind of watched things play out over the first 72 hours. And that kind of gave me an understanding of like, all right, oh gosh, here I am hitting this arm again. This is going to be the death of me. I said, all right, I kind of sense where this trajectory is going, but even that trajectory, my end point of that trajectory was lower than where we ended up. So I was very, very happy with how things turned out for Picaresque. And because of that, because it has been successful and because we have gotten more pre-orders than I was even anticipating, we haven't even begun to market the fact that you can pre-order the game yet. That marketing campaign, that ad campaign will kick off in a couple weeks. Really says to me, like, people want this game. They want to check it out. And so because of that, the goal is to continue to produce content for it for a while. I can't say for how long, but I do want to continue to produce new content for it, and that content will mostly come in the area of scenarios and also pre-generated characters. So, this project Picaresque was not only near and dear to my heart because I love Japanese TRPGs and I just love tabletop RPGs in general. If you've watched the show with any discerning eye, then clearly you've seen me sort of gush about role-playing games and how they're my favorite tabletop genre. But so it was not only near and dear to my heart because of that, because I love the genre, but because I was a bit more involved in this project than a lot of the other projects. I'm hesitant to say I was as involved in it as I was Gun and Gun, just because I did so much editing on Gun and Gun. But my role in Picaresque was different in that I was a proofreader, so I was proofreading Noel's work. But then I also we unlocked some pre-gen characters through the Kickstarter, and I wrote those characters, and so this project was very special to me because it's like, hey, like I was given permission to write these sample characters. Sigre-san said, "Go for it. It's all you." I said, "Cool. I'm going to do that." So I'm excited for this project for so many reasons, and I'm excited that other people seem excited for it as well. We will We will be sending all of the files to the printer, hopefully by week 1 of November. Now, this will be a quicker turnaround time for prototyping and printing because it's books. There's not a whole lot to do there. Book printing is very quick. Book printing usually happens at about 10 days, which is about 4 to 6 times faster than a board game. Legit. So it's a very quick turnaround. Now, we do have some accessories, some components, dice and dice trays and whatnot, but those are also pretty quick. The dice trays actually take the longest of the bunch to print, but I don't think we'll be slowed down too much by that. I mean, where we might get, kind of killed is trying to get the books to backers inside January. Now, I'm eyeing the end of January. With my delivery dates, I'm always eyeing the end of that month. So if I say like, oh yeah, we're going to deliver this game in January, never expect it on January 1, and never expect it on the in the first, second, or third week of January. I'm always looking at the very, very end, and that's the case here. I'm a little nervous though, just because the holidays are expected to be worse than typical holidays when it comes to international freight shipping and logistics. Go figure. I'm worried about that. I'm worried that might slow things down a little bit, but we'll see. We're going to try to get as close to January as we possibly can. Let's see here. Okay, just looking at the chat. For some reason, I can't pull my chat over to this screen, so I've got to look over here every time, and I hate it. What is going on over here? No, this side, Bradley, this side. Okay. You can tell I haven't been on camera in a minute, right? I feel feel out of sorts, folks. I feel out of sorts. So that's Picaresque. I don't think there's anything else to update there. Wild Hunt Festival. We are still waiting for the editor to tidy up DLC 2. So DLC 2 has been with the editor for like 8 weeks now. I'm giving him some passes because he's the editor on every one of our games, and he produces really great work, but he's got some stuff going on right now that is slowing him down. Some legit real life stuff. So I had hoped, obviously, to have that DLC to folks in August, and then September, and then October, and here we are in October, and I'm hoping to get to it in October. But I don't know. Which is unfortunate. DLC 2 was Pumu Rhapsody. It was the summer themed DLC, and now we are outside of the summer window, which is unfortunate. And most importantly though, like, the DLC is just cool. It really adds a lot to the game. And so I'm bummed that people aren't getting a chance to play it. So no new updates there, other than I'm just kind of like sitting on my hands, waiting for something to happen. Next update, Gun and Gun, which I have exactly no updates there. So I reached out, and I don't know if anyone saw this on the Kickstarter page, but someone just dropped a comment like, "Hey, do we have any news yet or whatever?" And I responded back to them of like, "No news right now, and y'all will be the first to hear of it as soon as we hear about the situation." So our printer is like, this is not the same printer that we used for Wild Hunt Festival. It's not the same printer that we're using for Embryo Machine. It's not the same printer we're using for Picaresque. Wild Hunt Festival, Embryo Machine, and Picaresque are all using the same printer. This printer is the printer we used for Sonoma Coliseum R. It is a different staff back in 2018, and of course different world circumstances back in 2018 as well. But it's been a very different experience this time around with them. Pretty rough communication. Pretty bad communication is what I mean to say, where I won't hear from them for weeks over really important stuff. I mean, actual weeks, literal weeks, which is wild. I'm trying to give everyone grace during this period, because like everyone is pulled in 1,000 different directions, and everyone is understaffed and overworked and underpaid and all of that. So I really do get it from that angle. And therefore I am practicing patience as much as possible. But like, when I don't hear from, when someone's like, hey, your stuff's going to the container ship, and then they're like, hey, your stuff had to come back from the container ship because we missed some stuff, and then they're like, we'll get back to you as soon as we have a new timeline, and then I don't hear from them for a month, I think it is now. That's a problem. That's a real problem. Like, I want to know I need to know what's happening there. And so when I reached out to them, was that last week? There it is again. I think it was last week. They're like, we're still working on the situation. We'll get back to you shortly. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. What does that mean? First off, what is the situation? Like, define the situation for me first. And then second off, what is shortly? Is shortly 2 days? Is shortly 2 weeks? Is shortly 2 months? I don't know. Your shortly might be different from my shortly. So it's been a frustrating experience. It's frustrating because people want to play the game, right? That's the obvious pain point. The other pain point for me is this locks up my schedule. Because Kickstarter only allows you to have so many projects unfulfilled at once, and so by this point, Gun and Gun should have already been printed, shipped, and fulfilled, and I should be hitting project 3, or the next project, I should say, next month, and instead that's not going to happen at all. I mean, I'm assuming when they say we're figuring out the situation, we'll get back to you shortly, that means that the games aren't on the boat. And it's going to take a while to get here, especially because now we're encroaching upon that holiday season. So it's going to take even longer. So this is an easy end of November, early December kind of thing. And that right there has wrecked my schedule. So I'm frustrated for business reasons because now I'm not making money. So I'm a patient person. Until it comes down to brass tacks and my bank account gets affected, then I'm like a bit of a monster. I mean, full disclosure, I'm a bit of a monster. So it's a bummer because people want to play the game and I want people to play the game. It's a bummer because we had things planned for the game that requires people to have the game to play. For us to do said things, and it's a bummer because now this creates a logjam with all the other projects, and it constrains and limits our revenue stream. So, not fun all around. I'm sure backers are annoyed by this. Trust me, I'm more annoyed than all of you. Yeah, I got a lot of money tied up in this project, so I'm very annoyed. It's all the money tied up in this project and all the money I'm not making off the next project that I can't launch because this project hasn't been fulfilled yet. So there it is. Av says, Bradley, do you need a bro hug? I could use all the hugs in the world right now, Av, when it comes to Gun and Gun. Operation Firestrike is happening, but I don't know when. The past 6 weeks have gone more turbulently than I was anticipating, and it's really kind of thrown everything off. And so Operation Firestrike is still happening, but now I got to rethink when that's going to happen because now I come up against a bunch of holidays. I come up against weekends where people do a lot of things, be it Halloween or Thanksgiving here in the U.S. or Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever other festivities that take place pretty much from now to the end of the year. Now I've got to compete with those things. And it's hard enough to get a digital tournament off the ground when you're trying to coordinate times that work for 10, 12, 15, 20 people plus. And now I've got to contend with all this other stuff that makes it even harder to coordinate all of that. So yeah. Gun and Gun, Operation Waiting Game. Isn't that the truth, Fern? Waiting game in so many ways. Waiting game in so many ways. All right, so That is Gun and Gun. Embryo Machine, we are in the queue for prototyping. So we sent the files to the printer about a month ago now. They sent some things back as anticipated. I think I even mentioned this in the update. They sent some things back like, hey, we need you to make this correction, and you need to do this, you need to do that. I think we've taken care of all those things because we haven't heard from them yet that we've needed to change anything else. And all of that is part of the standard prototyping process. Even if it's a printer you've worked with, a number of times before, when you send your prototype files or you send your files for prototyping, almost never do they say, all right, cool, we're good. We're printing these production samples tomorrow. It doesn't happen like that. So, but I think we've taken care of that, and now we're just kind of waiting to be next in line to have those prototypes printed. I don't know I don't know what the timeline's looking like right now. I mentioned, I think it was in the last Kickstarter update, that we got to sending the files off later than anticipated, and that's because we needed to iron out a few kinks in the game. And again, going back to that Miyamoto quote about delayed games, right? And so we took a little bit longer than we were anticipating. We wanted to get to sending the files off for production sampling in August, and it happened in September, which you'd think like, okay, a month delay, that's no big deal. But when the month delay coincides with the holiday season, and we were already coinciding with the holiday season, which was making December a very challenging day to work around. But my original timeline allowed for some wiggle room to where we could be delivered in December, even amidst the holiday craze. But when you push things back a month, then all of a sudden your timeline goes to shit. And that's, I don't know if that's where we're at right now. That remains to be seen what happens with the rest of October with production sampling. But it is going to be challenging to hit that December target date. It's going to be pretty challenging at this point. I mean, it was always going to be challenging. I probably should have just pushed it out another 2 months and said February. Campaign launches in February. Campaign is fulfilled in February. It's clean. It's easy. I tend to underestimate on my timelines. You'd think by this is like Project 5 that I would have a better understanding or just a willingness to say, you know what, I want to deliver in December. Just add like 3 months just to be safe. And if you deliver in December ahead of time, cool. But if you don't deliver in December, doesn't matter because you've got until February, March to take care of it, that kind of thing. I'll talk about that a little bit. Someone asked some questions this week in the Discord channel for this show about like what are LionWing's strengths and weaknesses, and I'll talk a little bit about that element and the weaknesses part, the things that I'm looking to improve upon here in just a minute. So the fan contest, yeah. So we hold on. This mic arm, this mic arm. Look, I'm having to type over this mic arm like a fool. We've gotten a number of submissions here. Just want to pull it up to see how many we've got. Dead air makes for a great audio experience, doesn't it? Here we go. Yeah. Got it. So last I looked, we had a handful of entries, which is about a handful more than I was anticipating. To be honest, I didn't know how this one was going to work out. I mean, it's an obscure thing for a very niche product. I'm like, I don't know if anyone's gonna partake in this. But yeah, so yeah, we have 6 responses. Legit, that's like 3 more than I thought we were gonna get, which is cool. So someone asked on the campaign page. Oh my gosh, I keep hitting this mic, guys. I'm so sorry. You probably hear a nice little popping sound every time I do it. Also makes for great audio. What an amateur I am, right? Amateur hour over here. Yeah, so the cutoff date is going to be November 1st for the Embryo Machine fan contest. And then we will announce the winner sometime toward the end of the year. So I haven't looked at the newest submission, but the submissions that I got previously, some very cool stuff. Some very cool stuff. I'm excited. I was a little worried. I didn't give enough guidance about like how to create the scenario or what a scenario is. I was kind of like leaning into the idea that if you backed Embryo Machine, you've probably played a war game before, or a light war game, or something that played like a war game, and so therefore you already knew what a scenario was for the most part, or at least you had a general understanding. In hindsight, I probably should have like explained it a little bit more, but you never know that it needed a better explanation, because everyone's entries that have submitted one so far have been great. They've been exactly kind of what I had in mind, that I wasn't able to fully articulate, but that I was thinking about when I came up with the idea and then pitched it to everyone. So I'm excited about that fan contest. I really loved the fan contest for Wild Hunt Festival. Like running events and running tournaments and that kind of thing. That's a hella good time. But I love a good content. Like I love a good fan contest where like people submit their own created stuff. That's just so fun to me. I love reading other people's ideas and how they approach game design, or how they approach world building or lore or storytelling or whatever the case may be. It's just really exciting to me. And so the Embryo Machine fan contest is particularly fun for me. So I'm glad we're doing it. And if you haven't gotten your entry in, well, you got a little over 2 weeks to do so. So quit slacking. All right, let's see here. Frank. You made one. Very good to hear. Very good to hear. You know, we haven't had two Franks in the chat in quite a while. There was a minute there when we had Frank Tank and Silent Frank showing up for these streams, and now they're back. It's the Frank duo, the Frank tag team. Okay, so I think those are all of our updates that I have. I don't have any updates on Testament. I don't know what's going on with UK fulfillment for Testament. Stop asking me. I'm kidding, but I'm not kidding. Stop asking me. I don't know what's going on there. We were the localization studio. I don't have any sway or pull or anything when it comes to what's happening with UK or really any of Europe's fulfillment, or any fulfillment for Testament. That all of that goes to Japanime. They are who you want to reach out to. I wish I could help you. I can't. Japanime is the right people to reach out to. Trust that they're working on it, that they're doing their best, that they're figuring stuff out. They're a super resourceful company, and so if things are delayed, they're delayed for a legit reason. So I would ask that you just give them a little grace. I know it's been coming up on 2 years since that campaign went live, and some people still don't have their rewards. And so I understand the frustration. I've been there. I've been on that receiving end. As a backer, I've been there. And, berating them, it's not like it magically makes things ship faster. That's not how it works. But you can certainly stop asking me about it. Okay. So let's get to some questions. We are done with project updates. Oh, I guess I'll also throw this out. So I mentioned before that we have a lineup of releases through most of 2023. We got some really cool stuff lined up for 2022, like some really, really cool stuff. I'm not ready to talk about any of that, but I think people are going to be excited. Some very large projects, large in like all senses of the word, large in terms of like workload, localization workload, large in the sense of like the brand behind those games, the IP, how popular they are in their native region. Just large, exciting contracts. And I'm like dying not to just talk about those things. But just know that I know it's been a little quiet lately, even though we just had a campaign that ended like 4 weeks ago. But I know it's been a little quiet lately with like what's going to happen next. But really, it's because we're sort of locked in with not being able to do anything until at least Gun and Gun gets fulfilled. Now, it all rides on Gun and Gun. So much is riding on Gun and Gun. Oh, Gun and Gun. Okay, let's hit some questions. Okay, here we go. So Retroflow had all sorts of questions, 7 in fact, which is great. I didn't really look at any of these, so no time to prep. Here we go. Question number 1. What's the most difficult part of creating a Kickstarter? What's the easiest? What's the most enjoyable? The most difficult part of creating a Kickstarter is, gosh, I could answer that question in so many ways. I think the most challenging part is finding the right mix of copy and graphics. So if you compare Wild Hunt Festival's campaign or even Embryo Machine's campaign to Picaresque Roman, you will see that over time we've evolved our style, and that Picaresque Roman's campaign is more indicative of the type of aesthetic presentation you're going to get from LionWing campaigns going forward, where it's a mixture of graphics and actual text. It's like HTML text, basically, written right into the Kickstarter platform. But if you look at Wild Hunt Festival, which had zero like HTML text, which was probably a terrible idea for SEO purposes, but all of the text in Wild Hunt Festival was embedded in a graphic. We're not going down that route anymore. Picaresque Roman's a little bit truer, not a little bit. It's truer to what we're going to be doing in the future. So I would say the hardest part is finding like the balance of like how much text do you use against graphics, and then how do you create a flow? How do you create a viewing and a reading experience when people are scrolling through that campaign that is visually pleasing, but also provides a potential backer with all the information they need to make an informed decision about whether they're going to back your project or not. So a lot of successful Kickstarters come down to not only how you present the information, but like in what order do you present the information? Where do you place the part about reward tiers and showing the graphics of the items that come in each of those reward tiers? Where do you show the shipping graphic? Where do you show like your videos? Do you put all your videos in a big block together? Do you break them up throughout the campaign so someone's always got something to engage with, a button to click, because we like clicking buttons, right? So that's probably the most challenging part because a lot rides on it. And yeah, I guess you could say like, well, yeah, of course, like a lot rides on the visual design of the Kickstarter, but I don't think people realize just like the psychology that goes into like what our consumer habits, and how do you try to understand that so that you give people the information they need when they're looking at your stuff, so that they decide like, this is the game for me, or no, this isn't the game for me. Because you don't want to like front load too much information, you don't want to back load too much information, you want to find that harmony. It's really hard to find that though, right? It's not like there's like a playbook out there that you pull out and you're like, all right, we're running this play, and this is what this play looks like in that Kickstarter campaign page. We do this here, then we insert this here, and then we do this here, and boom, we get the results that we want. Like that. No, that's not how it works. I think Picaresque's campaign not only found the right way to marry together text and graphics, but also in what arrangement do you present those things? Where do you put them on the actual page that makes the most sense, that is not going to overwhelm the backer, but it's also not going to underwhelm the backer? So you're always like riding the edge of a blade, when you're trying to put together that campaign page. And it's nerve-wracking because you do realize, especially when you're 5-6 campaigns deep, like, oh shit, like this stuff really, really matters. The first time that I put together the campaign page for Sonoma Coliseum, having no experience at all, I was just like, no, I think this is probably what it should look like. This is what I think I look for in a campaign page. And like, you look at that campaign page, you're like, oh, whoa, wow, okay, they've evolved a little bit since then. I've learned a thing or two since 2018 when that Kickstarter launched. So that is definitely the most challenging aspect of creating a Kickstarter. Um, the easiest part for me is the easiest part for me is designing the copy around like what the game is, how the game plays, what its features are. My favorite, ooh, the most enjoyable. It's a toss up between creating the reward tiers, like what you're going to include in each reward. I love that shit. I love just sitting down and saying, all right, so what's going to go in this first tier? What's going to go in the second tier? And then my first draft never looks like the final draft, right? As any good draft progression should follow. So it's always fun then. Like you get all your ideas down on paper. Like here are all the rewards that I think would be cool. All right, now let's go back and like what are actually cool rewards, okay? And then all right, what are cost effective? Oh, that super cool thing. Oh, that is super cool and not cost effective. Oh, I'm going to lose money on that. We can't do that. At the end of the day, I'm running the business, and businesses don't stay alive by making bad cost effective decisions. Cost inefficiency is not good. And at the same time, you want to make sure you're presenting really cool, unique, fun rewards for people, or else they're not going to want to back at levels beyond just like your base tier. And base tiers are fine, but like I'm a backer of a shit ton of projects. I rarely back at the base tier. I look for all the cool stuff. And so I love creating that. I love the whole process of getting it all down and then kind of eventually breaking things out and getting a final draft and looking at that and saying like, oh yeah, that's a sweet campaign. Like I like what we're able to offer. I love finding the balance of like, okay, I'm always looking at like price points, thinking about like I always want our stuff to be cost friendly. I've said that so many times. Like to buy into a LionWing game at the base tier, I think is very affordable, and that's always been my objective because not everyone wants to like go all in or wants someplace in the middle. They just like give me the bare bones stuff and I'm good and like awesome. I try to always, that's like where I start. It's like, what is our base tier going to look like? What are we going to include? What's it going to cost? It's got to be cost effective. I can't lose money on this, but at the same time, I want to make sure that this is attractive to someone who wants to check out our game. I mean, we are still a pretty young company. And so not everyone knows, most people don't know who we are. And so when they find our stuff, a lot of the time it's a new person who's never checked out our stuff before. And usually, not usually, but sometimes those folks are less willing to kind of go for those higher tiers. They're like, I don't know these folks. Let me just like see what they're about. I'll back at this base tier and then we'll go from there. And so I like trying to figure out like what makes the most sense for each bracket. Where's your base buy-in, and then like what's the next level up? What should that look like? What should it include? How much extra should it cost? If you have a tier above that, like all right, what does that look like? How much more do you pack in? And then I love all in tiers. I love coming up with all in tiers, what you're going to include, the value of it. And then slashing that value. I love a good deal, right? Everyone loves a good deal. And so I really try to make sure that our products are a good deal. And so I have a lot of fun with that. At the same time, I love writing like the first 3 sections of a campaign, which is like your initial blurb. And then we always do like a bullet points thing, like the features of the game. And then kind of like a 2 to 4 paragraph explanation breaking down the game's features and mechanics a little bit more. Like I love writing that first like 1/4, 1/5 of the campaign copy. That's really fun for me. Question 2, on the subject of Kickstarters, how often does player feedback contribute toward the final product? It depends. It depends on, do we have the room to make the changes that people want to see? So like I think back to Testament, and a lot of people in the comments section kept bringing up like this idea of like, hey, can you add more skills to the game? Like you don't have enough skills. You need more skills. You're going to go through these skills so quickly. And like, let me show you how many skills you actually have by doing this like permutation or whatever. And you only have this many skills. And if you added this many skills to the game, you would increase that by tenfold, whatever. And like, I appreciate that feedback, but like, I'm not going to go back to the designer and say like, hey, guess what? Someone doesn't like your game, and maybe they know better than you about what you should include in your game. I'm just not that person. I'll never be that person. I don't have any interest in doing that. If I didn't bring a game to market as it is, um, if I wanted to change something to a game, when I presented it for the first time on Kickstarter, I'd be presenting it with those things changed already. Like when it comes to like core mechanics. So I I don't do a lot with 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 backer feedback on mechanical stuff, because again, they don't know the game. Like they're reading about the game, they're looking at videos of the game, they're reading a rule book of the game, but like the designer knows the game, and I trust the designer. But where we will listen to folks is the things that we do have control over. Maybe it's price. Maybe it's added value for a tier. Maybe it's the tweaking of the presentation of something that we've created, right? Those are the things that I really take to heart and that I listen to. So we have incorporated some player feedback into the final assets. You'll see that with Embryo Machine. I'm not going to talk about what that is because, again, I like products just showing up and for players to not have known everything that was changed or is included in that final package. So much of Kickstarter, we pull the curtain back and we reveal everything about a game. And that's great. That's what backers want. That's what I want as a backer. And at the same time, I love getting a game and opening it up and be like, oh shit, they did this. Like they didn't talk about that. That's super cool. So you will see that with Embryo Machine specifically. Let me check the chat real quick. Let's see here. Okay. Question 3. What are the 3 board games you bought most recently? So I picked up Summoner Wars 2E. I picked up... Well, this doesn't really count. I mean, I guess it kind of counts. I picked up some new Shadowrun supplements. Because I love Shadowrun. A third game. I haven't bought like much of anything. Like buying a house, you spend a lot of money. And so you don't have time to spend a lot of money on other things. Let me think. I'm trying to like then go back into my memory. Like what was like the game that I would have bought most recently then? It probably would have been a back. It probably would have been a Kickstarter thing. Hold on. Now I'm curious what it might have been. Let's see here. You know, it's funny being in the position that I'm in, and just having the gaming preferences that I have. Like I don't buy a lot of games, right? Because like most of my stuff I get for free because I'm scouting stuff, and most of the stuff that I play is Japanese stuff. So like when it comes to buying things, I actually don't buy a ton of board games because I'm like, I'm drowning in board games from all these designers that I might pick up for localization and publishing. Here we go. All right. Now this is one of those things where it's like, is this a board game? I don't remember. Okay. Yeah. So I picked up Calling of the Matriarch. I picked up, or I should say backed. I backed Calling of the Matriarch. I backed Abyss, which is a tabletop RPG. I'm just going down my list here. I backed Grid Wars. I backed the Terminator RPG. I backed the Stargate SG-1 RPG. I backed Avatar. I backed. Yeah, okay, I think that's it. That goes back a little bit. Yeah, so those are some of the things that I bought slash backed. No, actually, no. That's thanks, Frank. I did pick up the new Kill Team starter box, and I haven't done anything with it other than I read the rulebook. I haven't clipped anything. I haven't tried to arrange a game. I haven't done anything with it. I totally forgot about that. I have that packed away in one of my boxes that I haven't unpacked from my basement. So like, back here, it looks like I've got everything together. So I'm in my basement, right? It looks like I've got everything together. This is just a veneer. Like this part looks really good. This looks like it's together. That's about it. The guards are so cool to build. Good. That's good to hear. Oh my gosh. By the way, the new Underworlds. Oh my gosh, what is it? Oh, Hallowed Deep. Oh my goodness. What is it called? What is it called? There we go. Harrow Deep. Oh wow, does that look good? Wow, does that look good? Like, I I go back and forth on if I actually like Warhammer Underworlds. Like sometimes I'm like, this is my game. And other times I'm like, I kind of hate this game. But wow, does that new box set look good? Capital G good. Okay, getting back to the questions now. Sorry. Question 4. Do you see an eventual end to the inflated shipping cost crisis, or is it looking like this is going to be the new normal? Yeah, this is going to end anytime soon. It's not going to end anytime soon. I think most of 2022 is going to look like this. I think it's in some ways it might look worse, because we've got two things happening here. We've got the pandemic, obviously, and all that encompasses, which is everything, right? And then we've got international relations that are getting in the way of some of this too. So I think a lot of people put it on the pandemic solely, and certainly the pandemic is the largest contributing factor to inflated shipping costs and just inflated printing costs too. Like everyone talks about the inflated shipping costs, like freight shipping. Like absolutely, it's astronomical, but no one is talking about the the huge increase in printing costs. Something that used to cost 10,000 a print, now costs closer to like 16,000 a print. So that cost has gone up as well. Where the picture gets really grim is when you combine the two. And then it's like, fuck, how many companies how is this sustainable? I get worried about folks who launched campaigns earlier this year or late last year, even in the first quarter, even the second quarter this year, who had plotted out their finances for a project. And now those finances don't really apply any longer because the tides have shifted so dramatically just in the past 6 months that I get worried, like, oh my gosh, like how do you fulfill a project when you didn't control, or could you have ever foreseen costs going up as much as it has? And then how do you print, ship, and fulfill a game that you don't have money to print, ship, and fulfill? Like that really is scary for me. That makes me nervous for a lot of companies out there. So but yeah, so like people think it's just the pandemic. It's not. It's international relations. That's playing a part in this as well, and really has been playing a part in rising costs. I mean, rising costs with like international goods has been slowly but steadily increasing for like the past decade. It's been slower, obviously, than the giant uptick that was 2020 and now 2021. But it was happening already, and this just exacerbated the issue. I mean, it's kind of like the case with everything as it pertains to the pandemic. Like the pandemic just accelerated a lot of stuff. People talk about like the retail apocalypse, and they've been talking about the retail apocalypse for 15 years. And yes, retail shopping is in a much different place than it was 15 years ago, and it was already dying, but like the pandemic just accelerated its death. So like, you're seeing places go out of business that were probably going to go out of business anyway, but it was going to take them another 5 years to do so. Now they're closing up shop 5 years earlier than they probably would have otherwise. So like everything is just being heightened, intensified, and accelerated because of the pandemic. But international relations play a huge part in this as well, and always have. And that's a part of the equation that I don't think a lot of people are considering. And because of that, I don't think that we're going to see a decrease in shipping costs anytime soon. That being said, this is a bubble and it can't continue because it's not sustainable across the board. It's not sustainable for the small companies. It's not sustainable for the large companies either. People are going to have to make deals. People are going to have to concede on certain things. The world in general will just have to naturally get back to its pre-COVID operations, which will take time. All of those things need to happen, and they will happen. But it's just a matter of like, well, when? I don't think it'll be in 2022. 2023 looks a little bit better. That seems more realistic, that we'll get to a place where like we're not getting gouged so much. But I'm really kind of interested to see like the fallout of this holiday season, because I think shit's about to get real crazy. I think some people are going to make money on this holiday season. I think most people are going to lose money because of restricted resources, restricted supply lines, restricted logistics, a change in consumer spending as it pertains to all of those things, the pandemic at large, and just the rising cost of living that was already happening, but also intensified, heightened, and accelerated because of the pandemic. And I think we're really going to see how bad this shit is come January 1st. When everything and everyone has been laid low by all of this, and everyone is standing there with their hands out saying, what just happened to me? And I'm talking like companies, based on what's going to happen as it pertains to being able to ship and deliver their goods, and to be able to make their earnings marks for Q4 of this year. I think then we'll begin to see people say, okay, we cannot do that again. Let's figure this shit out. I think right now people feel a little helpless, but I think they also feel like, if we just like ride this out a little bit longer, it'll resolve itself. And yes, it's going to resolve itself sometime, but it's not going to be anytime soon. I think people are going to be laid so low by this that they're going to say, all right, we're not just taking a wait and see approach anymore. We got to be proactive in this. We've got to play an active role in solving this. How do we do that? And I think once you get enough people at the table having that conversation, that's when we'll begin to see things go down. But again, I think that in and of itself takes time, and I think that in and of itself will take most of, if not all of 2022. Okay. Question 5. Are there any upcoming games that you're looking forward to? There's a whole lot of Japanese RPGs coming out that I'm looking forward to. There are a whole lot of Japanese board games coming out that I'm looking forward to. Hat Clad being at the top of my most anticipated Japanese board games. Oh, in terms of Western releases, I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at my Kickstarter account right now, and like all of these things I'm looking forward to, or else I would not have backed them, right? This is a good question. Like I said, I didn't really look at any of these questions beforehand, or else I would have had some answers for you. I really am looking forward to Calling of the Matriarch. I'm really excited about that. Yeah, that's, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I'm looking forward to, but it tends to all just be like Far East designers, that kind of stuff. I don't keep like a great, especially at this point, I don't keep like a great, I don't have like What am I trying to say here? I'm not really playing a lot of Western games these days. I'm not like super interested in them. Not that I think that, like, Western games are bad. They're clearly amazing, and the Western the Western tabletop scene is just continuing to be an absolute juggernaut. But it's just not, not really my thing. Um, yeah, I don't like super care for the aesthetics. Don't super care for like the lore, world building, tendencies, characterizations, narratives. Um, yeah, so I don't really play like a ton of Western games. I'm pretty okay with that. But everything's cyclical. I'll go through another phase where like I'm playing a shit ton of Western games, but that's just not right now. It's more important for me. I mean, like I need to have a at least a cursory understanding of what's happening in the Western world because you got to know what trends are, and the Western world is part of the global market of trends. So I do have to at least know about, see, or touch or hear about Western games, but they're not my business. I got to know what they are. I got to know that they exist. I've got to have a reference point. I'm gonna like that. That's not what that's not what I deal in. I only have so many hours in the day. I only have so many hours a week to game, and you can bet your bottom dollar that I'm always going to play the thing that could be a LionWing game above just like playing something for fun. It's one of the I'd say it's one of the drawbacks of like being in this position that I'm in is you begin to interact with the medium that you love in a very different way. It's sort of like playing like fantasy sports. So like if you're in a fantasy league for like American football, let's say, like suddenly you begin to engage with American football in a different way because you've got things riding on it. You've got, maybe it's money or maybe it's just bragging rights, but you are engaging with that product differently than you would be if you had no like true tether point to something else outside of just enjoying the game. The same thing happens when you're like when you're a part of the industry that you used to only be a part of by playing in it. And because of that, how I experience the industry is very different than how I experienced it just 5 years ago. So now I have to conceptualize it a little differently, which means I don't get to play it in the same way that I used to, which means I don't get to enjoy it in the same way that I used to, because a lot of it now is about business. If I'm playing a tabletop game, I want to be playing a tabletop game to see if it can be the next LionWing game. And I don't typically then spend those hours on something else just for fun. There are some games that I will play just for fun that I just can't get away from, but they tend to be things that I have nostalgia for anyway. That, sometimes it's nostalgia that draws me to the table when I'm like, oh my gosh, I got 3 hours. I could be playing a potential LionWing game. I could be playing this stack of Japanese board games over here in the place of what I'm about to play for 3 hours. But I've got like this really emotional attachment to this particular series because it's been a part of my life for a while. And you know what? I'm gonna make an exception, and I'm not gonna spend the next 3 hours looking for the next LionWing game. I'm gonna engage with this thing that means something to me, like Shadowrun, for instance. As I've talked about many times, Shadowrun is my favorite tabletop IP, just ever. And so I'll always make time for Shadowrun. But that's about it. That's all I'm really willing to like make time for when it comes to playing for fun these days. There'll probably be a time when I come back to playing for fun, but that time is not right now because I am in the hustle right now. I'm in the hustle. I am not awarded the luxury of being able to play board games for fun right now. Okay. Next up. Question 6. I said I'd get to this. What do you feel is LionWing's greatest strength and its greatest weakness? I think our greatest strength is we are willing to localize games that other people are not willing to localize. Look at Picaresque Roman. A prime example. An indie Japanese TRPG. Not many other companies are going to touch that. We will, though. We will do so gladly. and we will follow it up with things like that in the future as well. Some of our games that we've localized are games that were passed on by everyone else. Some of the games that we localized had already been on the market for years in Japan, and no one touched them. We did though, and so we are willing to make. I think one of our greatest strengths is we're willing to take more risks, which I guess you could say as a small company we should be just the opposite. We should be risk averse. We should be less willing to take risks, but it's just not in my business strategy to do that. It's a little reckless, and I understand that. And will it come back to haunt me? Maybe. But right now it's not, and it hasn't. And I like localizing the shit that I want to play. And I don't, as I've said before, like, I will pick something up, even if I'm like, what, I don't know if there's an audience for this, but I want to freaking play it. I want to play it in English. I'll be the people that put it out in English, and then I'll play my game. So I think that is one of our greatest strengths. I'd also say that one of our greatest strengths is just our rapport and our relationship with Japanese designers. We treat them well. We pay them what they deserve. We pay them fairly, and that doesn't happen, often. In localization, just take it out of this industry for a minute, just like in other industries and adjacent industries, designers don't see big royalties. And so, when you take care of people, word travels. The Japanese scene is a small scene still. Yes, tabletop games are probably more popular in Japan right now than they ever have been, and yet still very niche. So there's only so many designers, and all those designers pretty much know one another. So Japan's only so big a place, and there are only so many conventions, and they all kind of attend those conventions, and they all eventually talk to one another. And you can bet your bottom dollar when I've worked with someone before, and then I reach out to a new company, and that new company sees that I worked with this other company, you can bet your bottom dollar they're reaching out to that old company to say, hey, what was that experience like? How are they like? So I do think that is one of our greatest strengths as well, which also allows us to pick up cool projects like the ones we've done so far, and really cool projects that we've got slated in for next year and beyond. Greatest weakness. Yeah, our greatest weakness is LionWing is a one-person show. It's me. And only me. So obviously I hire freelancers, and I tend to hire the same people over and over. And so we basically operate in the same way that a multi-person company would operate. You work with the same people, you have meetings, you get to know each other's styles. You work with each other on multiple projects, et cetera, et cetera. But like that's all the game stuff. I would say like the game stuff is a fraction of running a business, even when your business is a game company. For me, the game stuff is a very small fraction of it. It's all the other stuff that I do, and that only I do. And so our greatest weakness is I'm only one person, and I can only do so many things, and there's only so many hours in the day, and I can't do everything that I want to do. And I tend to I think back on what I was discussing earlier with regards to delivery targets for Kickstarter. Like, that's something that I undershoot typically. Our first project, I was so excited because we got within like weeks, like 2 weeks. We haven't really had that since. And at some point I have to say, like, hold on a second. I'm the only one here setting these dates. Maybe I need to rethink my strategy here. Maybe I need to stop being so aggressive with my timelines, because my track record shows I can't hit those aggressive timelines. So that's certainly a weakness. And I would also say, like, when you're a one person show and you're doing everything, it's really hard to then be really great at any one thing. When you have to be good at many things, you can't be great at just like one or two things. And that bums me out, because that's not typically like who I am in my general life. I like to specialize and be really proficient in a couple things. I find that to be more rewarding, and I find it to be more helpful, and I find it to be more effective than being someone who's just like, oh yeah, I can do a little bit of everything, but I can only do it like subpar. And I wouldn't say that I'm doing things subpar with LionWing, but I like when you're running social and you're running marketing and you're running press relations and you're writing all the copy, you're running the website, you're fulfilling orders, you're doing the back end order keeping, you're doing all the Japanese relations yourself, you're scouting, you're playing, you're the accountant, you're scheduling meetings, you're creating timelines, you're doing videos like this. Like that's a that's a lot. That is a lot. And so because that is a lot, things fall to the wayside. Because at some point I have to say, well, hold on. I can only do so many things. Like I got to prioritize. And when you prioritize, obviously part of the very concept of prioritizing is there are things at the top of the list, and then there are things inevitably at the bottom of the list. And inevitably there are things that I put at the bottom of the list, and those are the things that we suffer for a little bit. But that has to be the way that it has to be, because I got to be able to take care of the top priority stuff before I ever get to that. Now, the problem is sometimes you're so busy with the top priority part of the list that you don't really get ever, in some cases, to the bottom of the list. And then that stuff, hopefully it's just like one or two things, but that stuff never really gets addressed. And that's just the way it goes when you are running a company all by yourself and, doing almost literally everything yourself. So next up, which is your worst nightmare? A game that has all linen finished components, or one that includes, nay, requires sleeves? Oh, the first, a game that has all linen finished components. I mean, like it kills me to even look at Wild Hunt Festival. And like it double kills me to have to play it, because then I got to hold those components, and I'm just like, oh, this is so disgusting. So yeah, I would pick a game that required sleeves all day, every day, twice on Sunday, over a game that had all linen finished components. Okay, next question. What's the status of the G&G tournament? Well, I mentioned that before. Operation Firestrike is happening. I'm just trying to figure out when the hell I'm going to do that. If I had to guess, I would say, I would say November. Yeah. November, early December. I got to be mindful of holidays. Next question. I want to know how the move is and how the state of the younger hailstorms are. Are there enough Hawaiian sweet rolls for your son in the new location? So I'll tackle that in reverse order. I showed a picture of my son. He's 4. He just started. I just started like introducing him to games recently, like in the past couple months, and I allow him to play like 10 minutes of games a day, and so I said he could choose any game he wanted to play. Right, and I lined him up in front of my game shelf, and I said, let's just go through the games. We'll look at them, and then you tell me which one you think looks the coolest. So he chose Lunar Dragon Song for the DS. Poor kid. Poor kid. Like, that is not the game you want to be your first game, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Lunar. You can't see it, but I've got various copies of the PSX games and the GBA game up there. But so he chose Lunar Dragon Song, and I took this pretty rad picture of him like playing through a battle in Lunar Dragon Song, which he loves, by the way. Bless his heart. And he's eating a Hawaiian roll, just one hand on the DS, one hand Hawaiian roll in his mouth. So there are never enough Hawaiian sweet rolls for my son in this house. The state of the younger hailstorms in general is very good. We moved to a different part of the city, so we're out in the burbs now. And I mean, we were in the suburbs too, but we were very, very close to Cincinnati proper before. We were like a 10-minute drive from downtown Cincinnati. So it was suburbish, but it was also not suburbish. Now we're like 45 minutes out of the city. And that means that they are going to new daycares, which is always great, because we found out some stuff was happening at their old daycare with my son that was not fantastic. So they're going to new daycares. They're doing very well. We live very close to my parents now and the rest of my family, as well as my wife's family. And so the kids are definitely reaping those benefits of being close to their grandparents, which is fun. And the move is the move, you know. We've been here 3 weeks, but if you've ever moved before, especially if you've got a family or a large family or whatever, you know that you're never really fully moved into your house until you're about 6 months in the house. So we will still be unpacking boxes, and I will still be driving anchors into the wall to hang shit and leveling shit for the next like 5 months, and it makes me want to die a little bit. Next question: are you still alive? From Rogue Knight. Yes, here I am in the flesh. It's really me. It's not a doppelganger. It's not a cyborg. It's not a. It's nothing. It's me. This is me. 2. How sore are you from the move? Well, right now I'm good. In the days that followed the move, I was pretty sore, but like I moved enough in my life to know that, especially at this point in my life, I'm not moving heavy shit. I am hiring that out to other people. They can move all that heavy shit for me. I'm over that life. I will pay someone to do that for me. So like I was a little sore, but it wasn't too bad. Does the new place come with a squeaky door? Not really, unfortunately. So you won't hear the squeaky. You won't hear the squeaky door coming from upstairs when my wife is like throwing something away in the trash can or coming downstairs to do laundry. Next question from Bitcoins. It wouldn't be a Bitcoins question without the question being totally unrelated to anything at all. And that's why I love Bitcoins questions. Are there ghosts? It's like, what a vague question. Are there ghosts? I don't believe so, but you know, that's just my belief. In Embryo Machine, for variable range A cards, can you take out the range penalty for mechs that are too close as well as those that are too far? No. I think I answered this question actually in the Embryo Machine chat, if you want to do a search there for it, because I think this came up, or maybe it was during one of our no, that's right, it was during one of our LionWing plays, one of the weeks that we were playing Embryo Machine. This came up between Beans and Sin, and so my answer is in that video, though. Which EM based LionWing plays that was, I don't remember, but it's in one of those. I think we actually even changed the wording or provided more clarity around this in the final rulebook. I'll have to look at that. As I mentioned, like Embryo Machine is probably the game that I was the least hands-on with. All the other games I've had pretty not pretty, like I've been pretty involved in all the games at this point. But Embryo Machine certainly is the game that I've been the least involved with. So I'm not as familiar with the rules. I haven't played it to death like I have something like Wild Hunt Festival or Gun and Gun or Picaresque Roman. So it takes me a little bit to usually get to the bottom of like a tricky rules question Embryo Machine, whereas like I feel like if someone asked me a question about Wild Hunt Festival, I'm like, oh yeah, I know that answer because I ran into that with the Embryo Machine. I just didn't put in the time the same way that I did with the other games. I left it to the team to take care of, and we have the same team running all the editing and play testing and QA, and so it's all the same folks doing the same work that they've done for all the other games. Just I wasn't as directly involved in Embryo Machine. So that's it for the questions tonight. So we're at an hour and a half, which means I'm feeling pretty good. It's a little bit longer than I was wanting. I was wanting about an hour and 15 minutes. I'm 15 minutes over, but if you've been watching the show long enough, you know that me being 15 minutes over is a pretty impressive feat. So we are doing this back on our regular schedule every week. That's the plan anyway. It's hard to do a weekly show that's based around updates when you just don't have a lot of updates to give. So I don't know what the content is going to be like for the show over the next like 6 weeks, but I might have to get creative and break outside the mold, bring some folks on, have some guest hosts. I know I want to bring Fern on because he was the Bulletstorm winner, and part of the prize package as being the winner for Operation Bulletstorm back in May was to come on if the winner wanted to, if Fern wanted to talk about Gun and Gun or really anything, tabletop, LionWing, Japanese games, whatever. So maybe I'll reach out to Fern and cash that chip right now. Might also bring on some more folks who have been a part of the games to talk about what it was like, because I think I probably am going to be a little starved for update content going into the holiday season. And at the same time, we got some things that are supposed to be hitting around here. So hell, who knows? I might have a ton to talk about. But that's where we're going. We'll be doing this again next week here on Twitch, 9 p.m. ET, unless I say otherwise, but I'm not saying otherwise. I missed you all. I'm glad to be back. I want to talk with you all. I'm going to be more present in the Discord going forward. Getting back to my earlier days of being in the Discord. Whoops, I really, really need to get a new setup here. And I'm looking forward to being engaged again and being rooted in a place that is my own, and not having to worry about not being rooted in a place that's not my own. So thanks everyone for joining me tonight. I'll talk to you soon, and hopefully we'll be talking about games soon. Until then, take care.